Alright, what do you want me to tell you? Hey friends, what's up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Lamed Vav, Daf 36 of Masechta Sukkah. We're going weiter talking about the Esrig. What do you want me to tell you? I mean, some more. Well, some of it's actually pretty practical, I guess. But anyways, different scenarios of Esrogim. And then at the end we get to the concept of Chaser, which is actually very interesting. I wouldn't necessarily say it's necessarily a famous sugya, but maybe people have heard of it. I don't know. But Reb Chanina, he would have a minig to take a bite out of his esrog. So we discussed that a little bit, and then we kind of wrap up this Mishnah, and I think that we'll just kind of pause when we get up to the next Mishnah. So on Lamed Vav Amud Beis. So let us begin at the bottom of Daf Lamed Hey Amud Beis. Niklaf, if we said that if the esrog is peeled, so then it is possible. Amar Rava, I esroga de aglit ke ahina sumko kshere. Says Rava that if you have an esrog that is peeled and it's like a date, like a red date, meaning kind of like when you have an apple and you oh my gosh, wait 1 second. The sun is like pashit right in my eyes, but it seems to be deflecting off of this chair. So maybe if I move the chair, let's see. Oh my goodness gracious. Now I Pasha can't see. Give me a second, friends. Alright, so I moved the chair. Lamaisa, I think that did the trick. Oh my gosh. Very interesting. So you know kind of like you take an apple and you peel it and you leave it out, it like oxidizes and becomes like, red, brown kind of thing. So here also by the esrig, if you peel it and it becomes like red, so then like the rind becomes red, so then like a red date, so then ksher. For honor, it's not niklaf possible. 1 second, the Mishnah says that if you peel it, it's possible. So interesting answer, lokasha, and says Rashi that if you peel it entirely, then it's fine. But if you peel it in like little places, so then it'll be spotted. And if it's spotted, it won't be hotter, it'll be possible. But if it's entirely peeled and it's entirely red, then it's okay. It sounds like kind of a big chiddush to me. What, you peel an esrog and it's fine? I was wondering. So let me tell you something. I was preparing Babylon Talmud, so I jumped. Anyway, Lamaisa, I ended up learning B'chavrusa, which is very nice. I ended up having a chavrusa. Al Kaponim. So I ended up having a chavrusa, and so we were running through this together, and so we both thought it was taka very interesting. Yeah, Lemaisa, it was funny. I'll tell you. I feel weird talking about groove in Babylon Talmud, but Lemaisa, I was preparing Babylon Talmud. I pasha jumped into a groove so that I could learn the Indian. And then this guy joined me in the groove, and he's from a Yid. I was like, oh, Reb Yid, maybe let's learn. We'll do it b'chavrusa. He's like Gishmak. He was learning. I was learning. So we ended up learning B'chavrusa, for an hour. And, so anyway, so we saw this sugya, which is like, if you peel the esrog, it's kosher. So we asked, like, what if you have an esrog and it's got like a problem with it? It's got like like a spot or something. Can you just peel the esrog and now it's kosher? Let's go back there. So nizdak v'nikiv. So if it got split or if you put a hole in it, tani ula bar chinina. So ula bar chinina ta nikiv nekiv mefulosh b'mashu. So if the hole goes straight through the esrog, so then that's a problem. No matter how big or small the hole is, it's going to be a problem. B'sheinu mefulosh. But if it's just a hole that doesn't go straight through the esrog, so then b'ki'isr, it's only a problem if it is the size of a coin. The size of a coin, then it's a problem. If it has a hole the size of a coin, then it's a problem. By Rava says, Noldu be'esrog simane treifa mau. Rava wants to know what happens if in the esrog there become like signs of a treifa. What does that mean? It means that when it comes to an animal, there are certain signs in an animal that makes the animal a treifa, that it won't last the year. So what happens if in the esrog there are things that are happening to the esrog that theoretically, if it would be an animal, it would be a treif animal? Do we say that would be a problem in an esrog? Okay, obviously we're not concerned about the esrog dying. It's already separated from, probably, I guess, dying already. But, right. The shaila is things that in an animal would be a treifa. If the same thing happens in esrog, would it be apostle esrog. What's Rava asking? Iniklav tanina, if he's asking about a peeled esrog, we talked about a peeled esrog. Inistag tanina, if we're talking about if it's split, the Mishnah talks about a split esrog. Inikav tanina, if we're talking about if it has a hole in it, the Mishnah talks about an esrog that has a hole in it. What Rava is asking is about the situation, the context of ula am Reb Yochanan. If you have a piece of lung that it collapsed, I guess, and I don't know much about lungs and stuff. Do we have what's a lung doctor? I don't know. Nephrologist, I think, is like kidneys, right? What's a lung doctor? What's a lung doctor? Is it just called a lung doctor? All right, we have lung doctors at Babylon Talmud. Anyways, I guess a lung can turn to mush. So what if if the lung of the animal turns to mush, yuck. To the extent that you can pour it out like water. It's like if you flip over the lung, it'll just I don't know, imagine you had some, yeah, I feel I don't know, imagine you had this thing filled up with water and you can just flip it over and the water kind of falls to the other side. So I guess a lung can kind of be like that. Okay, what do you want me to tell you? So re'esh nishbecha kikiton ksher. So if you have a lung that you can kind of flip it over and it'll just run down to the other end, it's just filled with water. So it's kshera. V'amaravan says Rava v'udekaima simpona. That's only if the bronchioles are still intact or something. Then it's kosher. Halokama simpona treifa. But if the bronchioles are not intact, then it's treifa. Achamai. What would happen in an esrog if the inside of the esrog was mush or something? So do we say, well, just I guess it would be kosher by the treifa, so it wouldn't be considered a treifa, it would be kosher, so maybe also it's kosher by the esrog, right? Do we say, but maybe dilmahasam udelo shalid ba'avira, but maybe it's different when it comes to the animal, because since the lung is inside the animal, in a place where, inside of the animal, it could heal itself. It's not exposed to the elements, it's inside the animal, and the animal will heal itself. So maybe that's why it's kosher. So hadabaria, it'll heal itself. Aval hacha the shalit ba'avira suchim misrachas. But over here, by the esrig, where it's just out in the open, so it won't heal itself. O dilma loshna, or maybe just by the animal, it's not a treifa, it's kosher. So maybe by the esrig, it's also kosher. Tashma come here. Esrig tafuach saruach. If you have an esrig that is rotted or decayed, kavush, I don't know, pickled, shaluk, boiled, kushi, black, lavan, white, umenumer, spotted, puzzle. So then pashit, the esrig is puzzle in any of these cases. Esrig kikader. If you have an esrig that's like a ball, puzzle. V'yesham afatyom. Those would say also a twin puzzle, if the esrog is almost looks like there's two esrogs attached to each other. Puzzle. Esrog aboser, if it's an esrog that is very undeveloped, it's the size of a bean. Rabbi Akiva posel v'chacham machshirin. Gadol b'tfus, if you raise the esrog in some kind of a mold, v'asol kamin birya acheres, and now it looks like something else. You grow the esrog in a mold, and I don't know, maybe it looks like a poodle. Puzzle. Tanimiyas tafuach saruach. So now the Gemara says, look, what we taught in that brisa just now, that if you have an esrog that's tafuach or saruach, if it's rotten or if it's decayed. So, my love, tafuach mi b'chutz, saruach mi b'fnim. What it means is that tafuach would be rotted on the outside, whereas saruach is decayed on the inside. And we're saying that it's possible. So there's our answer. That even though by a treifa it's kshera, by an esrog when the inside is mush, it's possible. Lo. No, both rotted and decayed are from the outside. And when it means that they're two separate things. If it rotted but didn't decay, or if it decayed but it didn't rot, those are two separate mitziases. Alright, what do you want me to tell you? But if it turned to mush, maybe it would taka be kosher. Alright, sounds good to me. Amar Mai, we said earlier, esrog kushi posel, that a black esrog is posel. No, sorry, 1 second. My esrog kushi posel, that an esrog from the land of Kush is posel. So Ve'atanya, but we learn in a Brisa, Kushi kosher, that an esrog from the land of Kush is kosher, but Domel Kushi possible, but if it's similar to a Kushi, kilo, a person from the place of Kush that has black skin, so if the esrog is black, so then it's a possible esrog. So meaning, on the one hand, our Mishnah says that an esrog Kushi, then an esrog from the land of Kush is possible, yet we have a Brisa that says no, from the land of Kush is taka kosher, but if it looks like if it has the complexion of the people who live in Kush, i.e., if it's a black esrog, so then it's possible. So what's the deal? Our Mishnah says that from the land of Kush is possible, but the Brisa says from the land of Kush is taka kosher. So Amar Abaye kitnanami masnisin dome lekushi. So no, our Mishnah also tnan. So our Mishnah also, when it says Kushi, it doesn't mean from the land of Kush, because from the land of Kush would be kosher. It means black. If it's a black esrog, so then it's possible, like the Brisa says. Rav Omer says, Rav lo kasha halon valu. It depends. In Eretz Yisrael, so then it's a possible esrog, because the land of Kush is far away from Eretz Yisrael, so they're not used to those esrogim, so therefore it's possible. But in Bavel, where it's closer to the land of Kush and it's more common to find a black esrog, so then it is kosher. Okay, fine. Esrog aboser b'kiva posel v'chacham machshirin. We said that an esrog that is very small, it's like the size of a bean, it's undeveloped. So Rabbi Kiva says it's kosher. No, Rabbi Kiva says it's possible, and the chacham say it's kosher. Amar Rabbi says Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Shimon, Amar Davar Echad. The Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shimon agree. Rabbi Kiva Adamaran. Okay, what does Rabbi Kiva say? Rabbi Kiva says that which we just said, that an esrog that's the size of a bean, and it's only developed the size of a bean, is possible. Reb Shimon, what does Reb Shimon say? The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Reb Shimon poter esrogim b'kotnan. Reb Shimon says that an esrog that is very small is poter from like Trumas and Maisros. So we see that Rabbi Kiva says that an esrog that's very small is possible. It's not a good esrog, and Reb Shimon says, that was Rabbi Kiva, and Reb Shimon says that an esrog that is very small is poter from Trumas and Maisros. So both seem to be saying that an esrog that's really small is like not a real esrog. Amalei Abaye says Abaye de Malohi, maybe that's not true. Maybe they don't agree. Adkan lo kam Rabbi Kiva acha. Maybe the only reason why Rabbi Kiva says that a very small esrog, that an esrog aboser is possible, is because the bein and hadav eleka, because it has to be beautiful. And if it's so tiny, it's not beautiful. Aval hasam, but when it comes to meiser, maybe we would agree with the rabbis that it would be chayiv in meiser, because there's no mitzvah of hadar by meiser. Maybe Reb Shimon says that a small esrog is potter from Trumas and Meiser only because the pasuk says aser ta'aser, you should take meiser as kol tvu azarecha, the grain of your seeds. That in order for something to be chayiv in Trumas and Meiser, it has to be developed enough that the seeds inside of it you would actually plant. Now, if it's so small that it's the size of a bean, or it's so undeveloped, so then the seeds inside of it you wouldn't be able to plant, and therefore it would be part of Trumas and Maisers. But maybe he would hold like the rabbis that it would be a kosher esrog though. There's nothing to do with Maisers and having to plant it. V'sulo midei, and the Gemara says, and this is undisputed, when Abaye says that Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shimon don't say the same thing, that's true. It's not like Rabba who says that they do agree. Okay. Godlo b'defus, we said that so this is new. So Godlo b'defus, if a fellow raises the esrog, grows the esrog in a mold, and now it looks like a poodle, some other thing, possible. Says Rava, yeah, it's only going to be a problem if you make it look like something else. But if you just put it in a mold and it looks like an esrog, and you just shaped it into whatever shape esrog you wanted it, said it would look nice, that's fine. Pshita. Okay, what's the chiddush of Rava? Kamim birya acheres. Tanya. Right, the Brisa specifically said, yeah, if it looks like something else, then it's a problem. If it doesn't look like something else, then it's okay. Who cares that you made it in a mold? So what's the chiddush of Rava? The Brisa says, if it looks like something else, it's a problem. Rava says, if it looks like something else, it's a problem. He's saying the same thing as the Brisa. So tzricha davida dape. Okay, the chiddush is that if you make it if you put it in a mold, that it's like, I don't know, it looks like different. It looks kind of like a water mill with like a gear almost. So in that case, I guess Rava would say that that's still considered briaso, and that would be okay. All right, sounds good to me. Idmar was taught esrig shenakvu achbarim. This is interesting. Oh, so if you have an esrig and the mice were nibbling on the esrig, and now it's lacking. It's choser, right? You're missing part of your esrig because the mice were nibbling on it. Rav ein zehadar. Says Rav, that's a pasul esrig because it's no longer beautiful. But 1 second, Reb Chanina would take a bite out of his esrig, and that seems to be okay. So how could Rav say that if the mice nibbled on it, it's a problem because it's lacking, it's missing part of it? Reb Chanina would take a bite out of his esrig, and that didn't seem to problem. Reb Chanina kasha masnisim. 1 second, Reb Chanina, how could he take a bite out of it? Our Mishnah says that if it's chos or if it's lacking, it's possible. How could Reb Chanina take a bite out of his esrig? So the Gemara says, meh, it's no kasha in Reb Chanina, because our Mishnah that says that if it's chos or if it's lacking, that's only a problem on the first day of Yom Tov, because it says ulekachtem lochem b'yom harishon. Then the first day it says ulekachtem lekichatama, lekachtom lekichatama. It has to be a complete taking, and if the esrog is lacking, if you take a bite out of it, it's going to be a problem. But on the second day, there's no chiyuv of lekichatama. It doesn't have to be whole. And therefore, if Reb Chanina would take a bite out of his esrog on the second day of Yom Tov, and that was okay. El Rav kasha, but what's the deal with Rav? How come Rav says that if the mice nibble on the esrog, it's going to be a problem? What's the problem? Reb Chanina would take a bite out of his esrog after all. So Amalach Rav shani achbarim de meise. What I'm saying is that specifically if mice nibble on the esrog, it's going to be a problem because mice are gross. Who wants to? You don't want to make a bracha on an esrog that mice were eating that like mice were eating it. So therefore, Rav says it's going to be a problem because it's gross. But Reb Chanina taking a bite out of his esrog on the second day of Yom Tov, that's fine. There are those who say, Rav says Rav zehadar. There are those who say Taka. Rav says the opposite. Kilu, if mice take a bite out of your esrog, it's Taka okay. Because after all, Reb Chanina would take a bite out of his esrog, so we see that you can have an esrog that was eaten. According to Reb Chanina, what about the fact that the Mishnah says if it's chaser, it's a problem? So we say no, it depends. When the Mishnah says that it's a problem if it's lacking, that's on the first day of Yom Tov. When Reb Chanina would take a bite out of his esrog, that was on the second day of Yom Tov, and that where there's no chiyuv of ulekachtem of the kicha tamo. Okay. Esrig ko'in. What's the minimum size of an esrig? So Reb Meir says the size of a nut, and Reb Yehuda says the size of an egg. Omer Afim bar Papa says Afim bar Papa ki machlokas kankach machlokas ba'avovnim mikurzalos givaldig, that the machlokas by an esrig is the same machlokas as the stones that you could take with you to the bathroom to wipe yourself on Shabbos. That what's the size? The same machlokas between Reb Meir and Reb Yehuda. So is it the size of a nut or the size of a egg? Is the same machlokas like by esrig. Fine. Begimel avon v'Shabbos gimel avodim v'kurzalos muter la'achnes leveis hakisei. You can take 3 of these smooth stones with you to the bathroom on Shabbos. V'chama shiuron, and what's their size? Rabbi Meir Omer ke'egos. Rabbi Meir says the size of a nut. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ke'beitza. Rabbi Yehuda says it is the size of a so Meir says the size of a nut. Rabbi Yehuda says the size of an egg. What is the largest size of a esrig? So Rabbi Yehuda says that the largest size of an esrig is that you have to be able to fit 2 of them in your hand. If you can't fit 2 of them in one hand, so then it is too big. And Rabbi Yossi says that even if you could fit 1 esrig in both of your hands, you have to mamish hold it with 2 hands. It's a 2-handed esrig. So that's still okay according to Rabbi Yossi. Tani, we learn in a brayso. Amar Rabbi Yossi says Rabbi Yossi Ma'aseh Rabbi Akiva, that there was a story with Rabbi Akiva Shabbalavei Sakneses Vestroga Al Kseifo. That one time Rabbi Akiva came to shul on Sukkot, schlepping his esrig on his shoulder was so big. So Rabbi Yossi says, you see, our Rebbe, Rabbi Akiva, used a humongous esrig. Amrlo, but Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda says, Misham Raya, you're going to bring a proof from there. Afem Amrlo, Ein Ze Hadar. They said to Rabbi Akiva, what do you mean? You can't use it. It's not Hadar. So you see, you don't bring a proof from there. You couldn't actually get away with it. Givaldik. Now, what's interesting according to Rabbi Yehuda is that his opinion is that the minimum size of an esrog is the size of an egg. The maximum size of an esrog is that if you can't fit two of them in your hand, it's too big. So he doesn't really give you too much of a window there, because it has to be at least the size of an egg, but you also have to be able to fit two of them in one hand. So it's got to be like just the right size according to Rabbi Yehuda over there. Cheveh, that was that. We're going to stop here because Lamaisa I find often, I don't know. Let's stop over here because I feel there isn't really a good stopping point otherwise at the end of the page, and I feel like if we just read the Mishnah, we'll probably end up doing it again tomorrow anyways. So let's just stop right over here. Today we discussed more halachas of esrog. We said that if it's peeled, if it's entirely peeled, that seems to be okay, at least according to the way that Rashi understands it, which is very interesting. But if it's sort of only peeled in like a few places, it'll be considered spotted, which is a problem. If an esrog has a hole in it, if we said if the hole goes straight through the esrog, it's definitely a problem. But if it doesn't go straight through the esrog, it just has a hole in part of it. So as long as it is less than the size of a coin, it seems to be acceptable. All right. And then Rava said something. We had this interesting thing about what if you have an esrog that is like if it's like a treifa, right? So we said if you have an esrog that like its insides is mush, could you use that? We seem to be saying yeah, maybe, possibly. And then we got into some very technical things, like we had like if you have a tiny little esrog the size of like a bean, Rabbi Akiva says it's okay, the Chacham say it's not okay. Rabbi wants to say maybe he holds like Reb Shimon in this regard, or Abai says no, very technical things. Then we got to this very interesting sugya at the very end though, which was with Reb Chanina, that he would take a bite out of his esrog. And what's interesting about that is that we said, well, if it's chaser, I thought it's a problem. So we say, well, chaser is only really an issue if it's lacking. It's only really an issue on the first day of Yom Tov, where you have to have lekachta and lekichatama, a whole taking, and if you're missing part of the esrog, it's a problem. But after that, it's there's no chiyuv of lekichatama, and Reb Chanina would take a bite out of his esrog, which is very interesting. Okay, those are like really the main sugyas today. I hope you enjoyed today's daf. Have a great day. Peace.